Just felt like being 2020, it'd be appropriate to start out by saying, God bless America. I want to remind, amen. I want to remind people that we live in the greatest country in the world, live in probably the best state in the country, and work in the best industries in the world. How lucky are we? It's like we hit the lottery every day and we get to serve our communities in this way. And I have the honor of putting on these events to enhance relationships among you fine people. The reason I so strongly pursue contacting the people in this room is for the greater good of the commercial real estate and AEC industries. By attracting the best of the best, a core group of elite industry professionals who understand the concept of reciprocity and provide a balanced value to one another means everything to me. We're making business personal again. I don't know if you know this about the CCC, but the majority of you were hand-selected to be here. You can't pay your way in. It's invite only. So I haven't invited back 50% of the attendees from the first CCC just a couple months back, and it's been a constant process of refining the organization until we find the best possible balance. So enjoy your meeting today. You're going to hear from some incredible speakers who are trailblazers in their respective industries. And after each presenter, we're going to take a moment to address questions from the audience members. Before we get to our featured speakers of the morning, I'd like to present our breakfast sponsors, Capital Restoration, Vizz, and Viewpoint. These events would not be made possible without your support, so thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. Richard Dobbs, Capital Restoration. Let's hear from you first, buddy. So I'll give you a little introduction here. I'd like to introduce you to my good friend Richard Dobbs, Director of Business Development with Capital. Headquartered in Marietta, over 11 years, Capital has been a general contractor that specializes in commercial emergency restoration services, such as fire, smoke, water, storm damage, and COVID disinfecting for Atlanta and the entire Southeast U.S. With Richard's experience, he's worked with many companies like CBRE, Transwestern, Lincoln, Highwoods, Hines, the RMR Group, and Colliers. They all put their trust in him to develop emergency disaster plans for their buildings before a disaster even strikes to reduce the risk of loss. Produces business downtime with minimal impact to their bottom line. And when a frozen water pipe burst at Lenox Mall, Richard and his team saved Christmas for the kids, getting their picture with Santa by having a disaster plan in place. Thank you, Richard.
The moms, they have to set this up, a year in advance. So, we did not want to explain to the kidlets why Santa can come all the way to North Pole and make it to Lenox, but he's scared of standing in 1 inch of water. So we worked our tails off, got it all cleaned, and ready for the guys to get the picture. So kind of corny story, but it did happen. A little bit about Capital Restoration. We take protecting you and your facilities extremely serious. So much so we feel like that we really took the restoration company and just turned it upside down on its head. What I mean by that is, so let me first ask you this. So how many people have experienced emergency in the building, fire, water? Raise your hands. Okay, so how many have caused an emergency in their building and then fled out the back door? And okay. So what we do is, my team and I, this is how we can protect your building. A little bit different than a lot of the restoration companies. We can walk your building, find all the crucial shutoffs, the water, electric, sprinkler. You may have a couple floors that have exotic artwork, data center. So we're going to note all that for you. So what I'm going to do, we'll put this on a template. We can email this to you. And the coolest thing is we have an app that you can download to your phone. So you can have all your properties with all the crucial shutoffs and how to get them on your phone. So I know there's a lot of late night grinders here. Chris is one. Curtis, where's Michael Bull, AD, facility. You guys are working all the time. So you could be sitting in your office, all the water's pouring down. So what are you going to do? You're going to call the building engineer. He may not be there. You're going to call the fire department. All you have to do, remember that guy talking? Hey, we click on the phone, get the app. Now I got directions. I can go 7 feet to the left, go to the right, go to the mechanical room, find the water shut off, turn it off. So now that $200,000 loss is maybe a $1,200 loss. So if you would like to hear more about that, please reach out to me. We don't charge for this. Do not charge for this. There's companies that charge thousands and thousands of dollars, for this information, but they don't have the second part, how do we get there? So that's the short version. It's just a really a pleasure to know Chris, the wild man Chris. He's making all this happen. It's a privilege to be here to sponsor, and we look forward to a terrific 2021. Thank you.
Thanks to Chris's endeavors to connect the industry, I think we'd all appreciate that outside of your local industry associations, this is a great opportunity to get together, meet with like-minded folks you work with on a regular basis, but also folks you may not have had the opportunity to work with before. So earlier this year, I met Chris through a mutual friend, Chris Dysart of Building Point Southeast, and he said, hey, you should check out this. Meet Chris. He'll invite you in if he thinks you meet the minimum requirements. So luckily, I feel like I'm in good company up here with Chris. But Justin Olson, Business Development Manager for the Southeast for Viewpoint. We are a Trimble company as of 2018. So Viewpoint provides job cost accounting, project management, and human resources to the construction industry. Trimble's also being our parent company, a lot of resources there as well. So if I can ever be an assistance to anyone, I live here in Atlanta, part of a lot of these associations. Love networking with folks, so please feel free to reach out at any time. I'll be at the back after this is over.
Cycle of the building where we have a centralized platform that can pull in Revit, ArchiCAD, SketchUp, any kind of software and integrate with it and have a centralized location that you can collaborate with. So from owners, developers, to architects, engineers, to contractors, all the way into facility management stuff, you have one platform where everything is housed. So here's just an example of a project I did. It's called Musca. It was with Graham LaSalle. It was a shipping container development that he wanted to put together. So taking a bunch of old shipping containers and putting together a mixed-use development. So this is his site plan, which most of y'all probably know what these look like. So we took that to help him kind of get a better understanding of his project to the people of zoning and his construction guys. So go to the next page, and then hit it again. So we took it and put it into our platform and did more of a visualization of the project. And so when I went to the city of Smyrna to do the presentation, they were asking like where parking was going to be, and I could take them and fly like underneath and show where all the parking deck's going to be and how everything was going to be set up there. And then as far as the Scansa guys, they were wanting to know how much distance was between the units and asked a lot of questions. And having a visual program like this where we could go through and talk about all that and show them versus just a 2D site plan, they got a lot of answers and a lot of stuff done on the front end. So that's just part of what we're doing as well.
How long did that take to make that presentation?
A couple hours.
Really?
Yeah. Software. Anyway, I'll be around afterwards if y'all have any other questions for us, and we just appreciate being here.
Thank you.
So Sabine, Apollon-Lopez, and some of you in the industry may know me as the Cushman & Wakefield Project Senior Director for Development Services, but my side gig has derived from my love of cooking, and I have sort of patented a recipe for hot sauce, and it's not just your regular hot sauce, and it's not to knock anybody else's hot sauce, but mine is flavored with mangoes and pears and spices. I'm from the Caribbean originally, so I have that Caribbean spice in there. And so I have a special today. And again, I think just to give you a little background, I met Chris about a year ago on another industry event similar to this. And I was begged. I was going to go as a guest, as you, and I was begged to, no, you got to show your hot sauce. You got to show your hot sauce. So I have now become Sabine's hot sauce, not Sabine from Cushman, but Sabine hot sauce. And Chris was one of my very first testers, and he went straight. I have 3 flavors. I have mild, hot, and very hot. He went straight to the very hot. He had a drink, and I won't say what it was, in his hand, and he doused it into the drink, and he would not leave. And so I would encourage all of y'all, again, whether you like hot sauce or not, I have recipes for just marinating meats and fish, and even Bloody Marys, I understand it's really good in, but it's mild, hot, and very hot. So depending on your temperature, I have some tasters for you to try. Like I said, special for all three flavors for $30, otherwise one bottle is $13.99. So my mission overall is to import Scotch bonnet peppers, which is what the base of the peppers are, which comes from the Caribbean, and just really helping agriculture and sort of export and import into the U.S. So thank you all, and thank you for having me.
Support small business.
Chris, thank you for putting this together. It's just great to be out. And I'm safe to be around. I've already had COVID. I have tiger blood. And for me, all it was for me is I got really tired. But this is how tired I was. I was the tired that you feel when right after Thanksgiving, someone suggests you should help with the dishes. I mean, I was really beat. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about each sector and maybe an opportunity in each sector. Do you guys want to know the truth?
Yeah.
Yes. Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the truth can get you in trouble, right? Did you hear about the guy who was trying to get a job and he's at the interview and the lady said, look, tell us about your best trade. No, not your best one. Tell us about your worst trade. Your worst trade. He says, well, I'm really honest with people, really honest. She says, that's not a bad trade. He goes, I don't give a damn what you think. So I'll be honest with you then, if you want it. So I'm going to start with the sectors that are really doing well and then go to the ones that are doing worse and kind of slow down in the middle because those I think are the most interesting. Well, first industrial, everybody knows it's doing well. Next sector, right? It's doing well. Why is it doing well? Well, remember the Jetsons when they would go to the wall and push a button and get what they wanted? Well, now we do that with our behinds on our couches, right? We just want it and get it. Industrial's going to keep booming. Opportunity there, really building more, developing more industrial. So I think that's the opportunity there. I think the next sector that's really doing well are single tenant net lease properties. You know, properties with one tenant, they're high credit, they're typically long-term leased. We're seeing cap rates compress on those properties with really long-term leases. And if you're dealing with people that don't talk about cap rates a lot, I'll just like to remind them that look, if you paid all cash for a property, it's like your first year's cash on cash return. So we're seeing those properties actually go up in value whether they're long-term leased. And so the opportunities there may be, if you're looking for a higher return, is to look at some properties with shorter leases. When those leases get below 5 years, those values start coming down on those properties. Then you have the risk of renewal and those sorts of things. Well, one tip I would give you, there's some software now that tracks all of us on our smartphones. And so if you have a tenant at a property and you're trying to figure out what's their renewal risk, then you can use this software and kind of see how much traffic they're really getting. Maybe they don't report sales, most of them don't. So you don't know how well they're doing in the location. Well, check out this, and if you want a free sample of it, I don't have any reason to promote this, but I just like this software. So if you want a free sample report, just shoot me an email or a text or something, and I'll send you a link and you can get some free reports. So that's an opportunity there on single tenant. You know, the next property type I think I would mention would be office. And I'll start with government leased office and medical office. Seems to be doing really well. We've closed a lot of those transactions during COVID at our shop, and we're getting cap rates on those that are equal to, or on some of the government leased properties, actually slightly compressed cap rates from pre-COVID, because there's a lot of capital out there looking for opportunities and looking for safe investments. We took out a $41 million deal in Nashville that was medical office, right in the middle of COVID. We got the same cap rate that we would have received on it prior to COVID. Same thing on the government lease properties. Those we're selling, we sold a 400,000 square foot one in Mississippi. The cap rate was probably a little bit lower than it would have been prior to COVID. Now let's go to regular office. And I think that's the sector that people are kind of, hey, what's going on with the regular office market, right? Because so many of these office buildings aren't being utilized. There's been a lot of sublease space come on the market. There's a lot of companies and people suggesting that they don't need office space anymore. And so we are going to have a time frame for regular office that I think there's going to be higher vacancy, some lower values. Then I think it's going to really rebound. And I'll tell you why. and I'll tell you the timing that I believe will happen on increased demand for office space. Reason I think it's going to rebound is, think back at 9/11. They said then that people would never go in these high rises in Manhattan again. They'd never want to be there again. They did. Okay? You look at these surveys. 80% of employees say they're really productive at home. Yeah, 79% of those are lying. They want to be at home, right? Petting the dog and having the refrigerator close by in their PJs, right? I think the companies are going to realize. How many of you have been really active during COVID? If you've been really active, you're dealing with companies and businesses, and you've probably realized what we've realized is the companies that have a lot of work from home people, it's slower to do business with them. It's slower to get reactions. It's just more difficult to do business with them. So guess what? You're going to do business with people who are providing great service and are quick to respond, and they can collaborate with the people they work with and move quickly to service your needs, right? So companies are going to realize as the economy starts coming back, when companies are not afraid anymore to have their people together, they're going to start realizing that productivity is way down. And think about, I won't name all 10, but think about these issues for businesses in the office environment, not having people together. Recruiting. Have you tried recruiting people during this time? Onboarding. How do you do that? How would you like to recruit someone who said, you're going to love our people, you're going to love our culture, but you're never going to see them. You're going to be at home by yourself. And then the collaboration, right? The creativity, the production. There's going to be a lot of challenges for companies, and they're going to see it in the bottom lines, and they're going to want people in their offices. So they're going to want the offices to attract the people. They're probably going to want more square footage per person. We've had this big push over the last several years, especially when employment was very strong. And it's kind of started when employment was low, and people were really happy to get a job. We started cramming more people in less space, right? And all of a sudden you're down to 100 square foot per person. You're sharing space that someone just left from. How many of you would like to walk in a space that someone just left because they didn't feel good, and you're walking in to use the same hoteling desk, right? Or how would you like to be on a bench with 100 square feet per person? I didn't like it before. And when people would be on my show talking about how great this was, I'm like, all right, well, would you want to do that? Would you want to be elbow to elbow with people? When they sneeze, you're like, ugh. So I think you're going to see the office market rebound. I think it's going to take between 18 months and 36 months for some of these high-rise buildings, especially in these cities where there's a lot of people commuting and mass transit. Because you think about getting on mass transit and then getting in an elevator, going up in a building. And we're seeing it in the buildings that we're selling now. So the buildings that are high-rises, like this one, you go and there's probably less people working in these buildings. Sometimes 80% of the people aren't here. But we've been selling some smaller buildings in the suburbs, Douglasville, Roswell, Marietta, and I went on a walkthrough of several buildings 2 days ago. I would say 85% of the employees and companies were open and doing business. But these were smaller buildings, 2 stories max, and they have their own entrances. They don't have to be around a lot of other people that they don't know at these other businesses, right? So those offices seem to be doing well. So where are some opportunities in office? I think there's a lot of opportunities in office because of this time period of 18 to 36 months where there's more vacancy. So if you run a business, or your clients run a business, leasing office space right now, you can really get some good deals on subleases, on new leases. The incentives are great. You can really get a good deal. If you even have a lease and you still have some term on it, going to your landlord and suggesting, hey, would it help you with your lender, with your value, and help you sleep well at night if I extended my lease? So it's a good time to think about maybe going to your landlord and getting some incentives to extend your lease. Another opportunity in the office world is to owner-occupy a property, to buy a property. We just put a property on the market the other day, a little I think it's about 18,000 square feet. It's in a good market area. And I saw the price per square foot. I'm like, wow, that's a good opportunity for a user that could use that space. Take advantage of the lower prices in office right now. Take advantage of the lower interest rates right now. And maybe look at buying properties. Now, I like to tell companies, just make sure you're not buying a property for your business just to be buying property. You make sure it works for your business, because you can always just buy an income property. But buying for your business can be a great way to do it. You know you're going to pay the rent, right? And you can get really good financing. The lenders in here, raise your hand. It's owner occupant, strong business. You love that, right? Yeah, come on in. We got some money for you, right? At really low rates. Another opportunity in office, and another opportunity in single tenant net lease that we talked about is really hot, are sale leasebacks, where businesses own their own buildings, and they're looking at this opportunity where single tenant net lease properties on long-term leases have increased in value, and there's a lot of demand. So a lot of companies are looking at sale leasebacks where they control the property on a very long-term lease, and they sell the property to an investor. We're seeing some really low cap rates. We've got a couple 1031 buyers that are spending, one has to put out $22 million, another one $8 million, and we're looking at all these single tenant net lease properties. The cap rates are really low. There's a bank we just put under LOI yesterday at a 4% cap rate. And we're representing the client, the buyer. She loves it. We've showed her everything out there and the returns on everything. She wants that safety. She wants to drop by that corner and go, that's mine, and I don't have to worry about it, right? So there's a lot of investors who like single tenant net lease investment properties. You sell the property long-term on a long-term lease and you control it. So there's a couple opportunities in office. All right, what would be the next sector not doing as well? Retail. So obviously retail has been in the tank. You know, some of these sectors I don't have to talk much about. You all know the problems with retail. Now some retail is doing well. So, you know, on all these sectors and all these property types, you really do have to look at the individual property, the tenant, very closely, not just bulk these property types, obviously. So some retail is doing well. Here's the thing about retail that I think is really interesting. It's usually good real estate, right? It's usually really good property. So all of you are probably doing some sort of transaction that involves what property that was retail that now is being redeveloped, right? For last mile, or for hotel, or for multifamily, or for mixed use. So think about retail. There's some real good opportunities for changing use and with the existing buildings and transforming those, and also just redeveloping them. So I think the opportunity in retail is in redevelopment. And then to talk about the hotel industry, the hotel industry, everybody knows, is in the tank. The opportunities there, really, if you're in the hotel business, are buying hotels. Now, there's been a law that there's not been a lot of hotels to buy. A lot of lenders and hotel companies kind of kicking the can down the road to see when the market's going to come back. The hotel industry, when's it going to come back? Well, depends on the economy, right, the vaccines. But we have a hotel division. We have a division at every specialty. And then on my show, I don't know if you guys, all of you don't know me, but I do a national show called America's Commercial Real Estate Show, and I've been doing it for 10 years. And I get the opportunity to interview the top analysts and economists on commercial real estate in the U.S. And they all love being on my show. And I get great information out of it. And the show is absolutely free, and it's on your phone. There's a podcast app on your phone, and you can tell, hey, listen to America's Commercial Real Estate Show, and it's free. There's a new show every week. So I get to interview and get the information from these guys and ladies who are really smart, PhDs, real estate economists, and all they have to do all day is study this. You know, like us, we're also making a living, right? So I get to hear that. And then from having brokers in my shop, we have 30 brokers in every specialty. We do business in 9 Southeast states. I get to touch on these different property types, right? So in the hotel world, we're expecting that there's going to be trouble there from a year to 3 years. And of course, the biggest trouble is in these convention towns and the downtowns. Some of the hotels that are doing better are the drive-to markets. where we would drive to from here, let's say, to enjoy a weekend, right? Some of those hotels are doing okay. So the opportunity in hotels is really, like I said, is buying hotels. We talked about opportunities in office, leasing space, buying buildings. Another way to look at office is really the difference between suburban and CBD. And there's probably going to be some opportunities in the high rise, in the central business districts, once some of that becomes more available. We're going to test the regular office market today. We're going to take out an $8.5 million multi-tenant regular office deal in West Palm Beach, Florida. So it'll be interesting to see when investors in the regular office market kind of look at a deal today. It might be crickets. I don't know. This particular building is 100% occupied and had full collections through COVID. So we thought it was probably a good time to take it out. But who knows what we'll see. So that's a little bit about office. We talked about medical office. We talked about retail.
We'll let Todd hit on the senior.
Yeah, senior. And I'll let him touch on senior, but obviously they had trouble leasing right now and doing the tours. But I think the future of that sector is off the charts, incredible. I mean, if you think about the age group that go into assisted living, think about people in the 60s. They did a lot of drugs in the 60s. They're gonna need some help, all right?
Why bed control is such a thing.
Yeah. That business is going to really boom. So I look forward to hearing that. All right, so that's probably my 15 minutes of fame today. Thank you for letting me talk today.
Eddie with Lloyd Jones Senior Living, and we're going to help maybe give everybody an idea of where the senior housing industry is going. We're very bullish about it. I think there's great opportunity in the future. So we need to have a little understanding of where we've come from. But first, this is a real neat board called the Money Pyramid. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I'll try to go over it so you can hear in the back. So the Money Pyramid has not changed since like 1940. And the Social Security Administration has been tracking income since then. And no matter who's in power, no matter what plans we have, no matter what stimuluses we have, this thing never changes. And it's really interesting. So if you can see this, 20% of the population is broke. 60% will live in a lifetime financial struggle. We do have good news, it's coming. That's 80% of our population. And at the top 20%, 15% make a good living, 4% are prosperous, and 1% are rich. This never changes, no matter what happens. It may change in the future, but it hasn't in the last 40 to 50 years. So what this shares with us is that we need to be talking to the top 5% to find out what they're doing to be prosperous. And that's hard to find, except I would say this is probably a room full of people that are passionate and committed, or you wouldn't be here this early this morning at Chris's great show, wherever he's at. So the other way of looking at this is that we need to be wary, if we can't get to this 5%, we need to be wary of 95% of the information we're receiving, because the majority is wrong. And so as you've sat over the last year and listened to Zoom and podcasts, I would challenge you to be very discreet about what you're hearing, because first of all, we know that a lot of people had nothing to do, so they all decided to have a podcast. They all decided to have a Zoom conference, and I can't tell you how many people we've spoken with that, it's been beneficial at times, but a lot of it is just regurgitated information. So I'm going to try to share something new with you today, and you can determine where I fall in this pyramid as far as valuable information. So thank you. So the senior housing industry. So to share just a little bit of background, so I've been in the industry for 20 years, and I've been involved in 50 projects. So for the first 15 years, I co-founded Thrive Senior Living here in Atlanta, and we brought 23 buildings out of the ground, all resorts, AL memory care. This was right after 2008 when everyone said, don't do anything, it's tanking. And we saw a pathway for technology blended with buildings to offer a new product. And so we brought those buildings out of the ground, and we had very good success in the early days, particularly when not a lot of people had technology in the space. So we were seeing buildings, $12 million, lease up with 18 months. We had a transaction on them, dispose of them in about 24 months with multipliers of about 2.25. So, we thought it was our great plan when a lot of it was the market at the time. But things began to shift. Everybody ran into the market and said, wow, this is a great place to be. I'm used to $500, $800 a month rents, and now I'm seeing I can get $5,000 rents a month from seniors. And the statistic has not changed. We have 10,000 people turning 65 years and older every single day. And these are the baby boomers, and this is the Woodstock generation. And I would challenge you and say, not only are they not going to want any med management, they're going to demand for various medications to be supplied in the senior housing industry, and we're seeing changes in regulations for medical marijuana across the country. So I shifted in 2017 to the middle market. So I went to Florida, partnered and founded Mainstay Senior Living, where we looked at distressed assets, very distressed. REITs were disposing of them, got great deals on them. We had a vertically integrated platform. The gentleman I worked with was brilliant, and we invested $4 or $5 million in the buildings. We had a low basis, and we were able to charge a rent about $500 to $1,000 less than everyone else, and we filled them up. Because the middle market in senior housing is about 40 to 60%, there's debate on the numbers, unserved. So all the products you see on the corners that have come up out of the ground are targeting the top 10% of income. And so that's the target. You got to come in at a $4,000 or $5,000 price point, which leaves 60% of the market unserved. So here's the different models that we've seen built over the last 10 years. You have skilled nursing, which is going away. No one wants to go to skilled nursing anymore. You have assisted living and memory care. Those are the beautiful buildings on every corner in Atlanta that are 30 to 50% full right now. I don't know who underwrote them. A lot of money invested in them. You have independent living, which is for folks that don't need care, and then you have 55 active adult. And all these platforms have been built standalone, primarily, generally speaking, standalone products to meet a certain demographic group. So this whole thing has changed with COVID-19. And I don't think you're going to hear that anywhere else. When you get on your Zoom meetings, they're going to tell you that we're just waiting for things to, equity to thaw, we'll get back up and running, we'll get these buildings full. But a lot has changed, and the things that have changed, one is demographics are changing. We're going to talk about that. Number two, with the demographics, what clients are demanding. Number two, COVID-19 and 3 regulations. So let's show on the next board, Jimmy. So here's the new model. And what I'm going to attempt to do is try to explain a converging, demanding a new product we're seeing. So the problem we have now is we've had no admissions over the last 6 months in assisted living and memory care because of shutdowns. So there's a 40% attrition rate in senior housing every year. So no matter what products you have, you're going to lose 40% of your customers because they're not staying there forever. The average length of stay is probably now about 12 to 18 months, and it's getting smaller and smaller because people are not going in until they absolutely have to, which means they're going in when acuity levels, their need is much higher than before. So if there's a 40% attrition in a 100-unit building, that means you're going to lose 40 residents a year. So for the last 6 months, you've lost half of that. So owners have lost 20% of their clients over the last 6 months and have not been able to replace them. And it's putting pressure on their bottom line. And the second problem you have is that when everybody was moving into the space and marginalizing healthcare and talking about their beautiful bistros, which I do like them, their beautiful fireplaces, they talked about the senior who's 87 years of age coming down at 4 o'clock and having a brew at their bistro and talking about the old days. Well, I can tell you, being in the industry as long as I have, that doesn't happen. When you're in assisted living, you're over 85. Average age is 87 years of age. You have 3 or 4 comorbidities. You go there because you have memory loss. Over the age of 85, 1 in 2 have dementia, and 1 in 3 have Alzheimer's. So the reason they go in is because they need care. So it's all about health care. But the development group said, no, it's about beautiful buildings, large spacious spaces, which I think Melissa's going to talk about that. They didn't design the building for health care. So now when we have a pandemic, no one knows how to quarantine. No one has systems in place to take care of the residents. And there's a lot of unhappy people because no one cares about the bistro. No one cares about the bar in assisted living. So and the regulations are allowing people to stay longer in assisted living because the state does not want them on their having to pay their beneficiaries in skilled nursing. So what's going to happen with this AL memory care model is it's going to be designed to allow people to stay longer. It's going to be a post-COVID-19 building, so we'll have temperature checks when people walk into the room. We'll have air handlers that are moving the air more frequently. We'll have washers and dryers in the residence room, and whoever develops that model can charge more rent after the pandemic than before and fill it up, because all the buildings are not equipped right now to do that. Then the second thing that's going to happen is this independent living group here. That's the 75-year-old baby boomer. They're not going to like the product that's on the ground right now because they want a cool and hip place. So they're the ones, even though we built for the older adults, it's the 75 to 85-year-old that wants the bar. They're going to be down at 4 o'clock at the bistro trying to hook up with somebody. So if you look at the statistics, most people between 70 and 80 are experiencing either a death of a loved one or a divorce. It's one of the highest divorce rates in the demographic groups. Yeah. So when that happens, they're moving for financial reasons. They're ready to dispose of their asset, manage their wealth because they don't have a pension, and they're going to move close to the grandkids. And when they do move, they want to rent. And you can read about this every day. So they're going to want to go to a place where they can have their own apartment. They can make their own meals if they want to, but they're going to want a point of sale bar. They're going to want a zero entry pool. They're going to want to meet people. They're going to want entertainment, security, safety, and technology is such now that we can bring it into the building where they don't have to go to an assisted living. So I'm not going to an assisted living until my memory fails and they're going to drag me there, and I won't know it then. So this new model is a great opportunity for an independent model that will deliver that to the customer. And then the Active 55 is along the same lines. For those that want a wealth management circumstance where they sell their asset, can move, and have services provided to them without health care with people that don't have walkers and wheelchairs, there's opportunity there. So let's go back real briefly, and then I'll end here with the middle market. So we know in August 1st, 8,000 hotels filed bankruptcy. Those hospitality assets, I don't know if they're going to come back, and a lot of REITs are disposing them right now. And they have very good bones to remodel into independent living. So we're seeing them priced well below new construction costs for assisted living. And we see investors' appetite for distressed assets repurposed for senior housing versus not a lot of money chasing the old model anymore. The old model that was brand new 1 year ago that's now fairly distressed. And there's plenty of capital out there. We're hearing from people every day like, hey, we only deployed 30% of what we had in our $1 billion fund and we need to deploy it. What do you have available? And they're running toward Active 55. They're running toward independent living. They like the new AL memory care model, but they really like distressed hospitality assets. And they really like distressed hotels. So Jimmy, if you don't mind, if you could share the hotels we're looking at. So all these things we're looking at now, we have new product coming out of the ground in Port St. Lucie in Texas for a cool, hip, independent living complex that will come included with the Bumble app for our clients. Because remember, this is the freedom generation. This is the generation that had freedom on their Harley Davidsons in the 60s. So I think they're going to want something more vibrant. We have a hotel, several hotels we're looking at repurposing right now that are trading. And we also are looking at AL memory care with a new model we're going to be building here in Atlanta. So if you'll share that, Jimmy, we'll conclude. And I appreciate your attention and hope we've brought you some value today. Yeah, I'll be the board holder.
Great job, guys. Any questions for these gentlemen?
Hey, Chris, if you don't mind, we'd like to share that, just what hotel we got, real quick.
Yeah.
I'll give quick overview of the hotels we're looking at. Like Michael said, there's a lot of distressed hospitality assets that are coming, majorly in the cities. So what we're looking at is at some high-rise hotels, higher end, not super luxury, but higher end where we can convert. Has a lot of common space, so it's an easy conversion. The hallways are wide enough for IL, so we shrink down some of the hotel rooms, combine them. And right now we're looking at a hotel we're converting. It's going to be about 300 rooms. So it's a heavy hotel to fill in, but we think there's a lot of opportunity there in the hospitality world.
$1,000 price point, less than the competitors.
Right, and that's when we hit the middle market.
Yeah.
We make sure that after construction costs, we can pinpoint $1,000 below competition.
Yeah. Thank you.
Really interesting. Great job, guys.
All right, I'm gonna stand back here so I can look at notes. So it always throws me off a little bit when it's not panel driven, because I'm gonna try, I cuss like a sailor, so hopefully I won't do that today while I'm talking to you all. It might be the right group, who knows? Okay, so listen, 2020 was an odd year, and if you're like me, I'm kind of sick of talking about it. But if you look at the history and what we've gone through this year, there's a lot that we can learn from it. So listen, we all have been on Zoom meetings, right? We all started this year off where we were working from home and we were having to pivot and relook at what our businesses look like. So who had a dog bark this year on a call, or a baby on your lap, or a spouse that interrupted a call? So we sort of are playing on words here with bring your pets to work. So what we've heard this morning from some of the other speakers is the shakeup and change that's coming in 21, which is really exciting. But from a design perspective, how do we do that? So Banco Design is a full-service interior design firm out of Marietta. We are full design and also a procurement agency. The procurement agency that we have in-house is Red Pen Procurement. We're in 3 verticals. 70% of what we do is senior living. Another large portion of what we do is traditional multifamily, and then that third vertical is boutique hospitality. So we've seen a lot of integration in those verticals this year, and again, a lot of shakeup, which is really exciting because we feel like we're going to trailblaze what that looks like. But with all of this change and what these new models are going to look like, how do we accomplish that? So from our perspective, it's doing a little bit of a hard reset. And it's looking at how we take these projects and we really break them down, and we're having really serious conversation on the front end on how to make it work. So with bring your pets to work, the P is for process and program. Okay, so we have to bring everyone to the table. You have to build that design team, your construction team, your development team. Everyone has to sit at the table, and you have to talk about the process to get there. How are we going to do that efficiently? How are we going to do that smart? How are we going to save time and money and energy to get there? So let's all sit there and talk about what that process looks like. So putting your plan in motion, your timeline, your schedule, and your needed deliverables. I think that what 2020 has taught all of us is that communication is key. Let's just talk through it on the front end, right? So the process, we've got to walk through and set those steps. So bringing all the consultants to the table, when you should bring them in, and what info do they need? How do we set everyone up for success? When this year, the virus hit, the first quarter of this year, as a business owner, I had to look and say, okay, how are we still going to push projects forward? How are we going to work from home? And we did that for a short amount of time. We've been back in the office as a studio since late March because we saw as a firm that we weren't able to really deliver the same level of deliverable without working together in the same space. So of course that was strategic, but we've been doing that because we saw it affect the process. Program, absolutely essential for keeping a project on schedule and on budget. Can it be done? Yes, it can if you are talking through it on the front end. So your design team, your architectural team, and your other consultants on a project really should understand your vertical. They should really understand what your goals are. They should intimately know from a senior living or a multifamily perspective, your operations side, from a hospitality perspective, same. If we don't understand what the goal is and what we're designing to, how can that project be successful? So experience and expectations. So experience, the value of hiring a specialist in your vertical. So what we did see in 2020 was we had lots of talk and chat about, okay, well this vertical maybe isn't doing so well, so I think that what we can do is we can shift to this vertical. Can't tell you how many calls I got from multifamily developers that said, senior living, it seems like it's a really great industry, it's doing really well, it's just multifamily for old people. It's not. And then we had hospitality guys call us and say, hey, listen, our hotels aren't doing really well. We think we're going to convert them to multifamily or senior living. Certainly we can do that and it's easy, right? No, it's not. But we can make it easy for you if you have the right consultants that know those verticals and can talk you through what that really looks like. So bring consultants to the table that know your vertical, they know your market, they know the right questions to ask on the front end, they make the process easy and seamless because they've done it before. Expectations, this is one of my favorite ones. What is the expectation of your end product? So we were talking about middle market, we were talking about target demographic. If you're not asking those questions during the design process, the project will be a fail because you're not designing the right product. We have to dive into numbers. Where do you want to be in rents in senior living? Where do you want to fall in the market? Let me design a product for you that's appropriate for what your end goal is. So the expectation of what the target demographic is, let's talk about that so that we can design the right building. So we're going to talk about comps, we're going to talk about goals, and budget. So something that we attack very early on at Banko, especially because we have the procurement arm in-house, is budget. It's vital. You can still have great design at any budget. It's not going to vary if you tell me your budget is here rather than here. We're going to be strategic about what we're specifying and what we're designing, but you have to have that crucial conversation up front about budget. And from a contractor's perspective, let me have that conversation with them really early on. Let's not segregate the consultants on the job, because if we can talk about that early, we're going to save time in the long run, so we're not having to do a huge VE effort, or we're way over, or even with lead times. Talk about what the budget is. Let me design a product that's appropriate for your budget. Talk and timing. So again, communication is key. It's been even more difficult in 2020 to communicate because you don't have the opportunity to say, hey, come into the office, let's really all sit down at the same table and chat it out. So we've really had to focus on that, to almost over communicate, to make sure that everybody is on the same page. Never assume. It makes an ass out of you and out of me. So we get into a lot of, well, I assume that so-and-so is doing that, or I assume that this is where you wanted to be, or I assume that you did want this as part of the program. Can't do that. You have to really make sure that everyone is on the same page. So talking is key. I think too, what we've learned this last year is the importance of humanizing the design process, and that everyone sitting at the table is bringing value, and how can we really work together as a full consulting team for the better of the project. This is not a finger pointing effort. This is not I'm smarter than you. This is not I can get that for a better price. What can we do as a team to work together to really benefit the project as a whole? Timing, also a favorite of mine. Let's be realistic about the amount of time needed to do things. So we've had ownership groups that asked us to push the gas and to really finish things as fast as we could. We had other groups that said, hey, let's push pause and maybe relook at that. But again, it's what is the expectation on timing. Hire a design team that can save you time and energy on the front end. We sort of touched on that earlier. What can we do to be strategic so that we're not doing things more than one time? That doesn't make sense for anyone. Schedule and scope. Who's doing what? Let's map that out in the beginning. Again, it comes down to timing. What is your expectation on when you need deliverables done? What is your expectation on when you need pricing? What is your expectation on when you want your building open? All of those things need to be mapped out on the front end for the success of the project as a whole. We hear all the time, how fast can you do that? How fast can you get the project done? It's like, I can do it really fast, but there's you, and there's a review time, and there's other consultants that need to be folded in and coordinated with. So again, it's mapping all of those different deliverables and milestones out. And then a big one is scope. Who's doing what? So on the design team, you have architecture, you have MEP, you have structural, you have design, you have landscape. Who is drawing what? Who's doing what? Because again, if I'm drawing something and architecture is also drawing something, that doesn't make any sense, and that's not efficient for the process as a whole. So mapping out who's doing what and when, so that those milestones can be hit and we can roll to the next part of the process. The other thing with scope that we run into quite a bit at Banko is because we are a purchasing agency and we're set up like a hospitality model, we are also purchasing things like decorative flooring and wall covering and tile and decorative lighting. So really over communicating with our build team of who's purchasing what and when those things are needed, so that that is a streamlined process during the build. Okay, so the fun stuff. So we've talked about these different verticals. We've talked about senior living and multifamily and hospitality and what that looks like in 21. And I wanted to focus on sort of that design process because, again, I think it's important that we do a little bit of a reset and really work together as an industry as a whole to be as successful as we can be in 21. So we get asked quite a bit, where do you see 21 going from your perspective in the design industry? And we absolutely do see a focus on health and wellness. So, you'll say, well, that makes sense because you're in the senior living space, and of course that is something that we know that senior living focuses on. But I think what you're going to see is a focus on that also in other verticals. And again, I can speak to multifamily and to hospitality. There is this concern about how we can integrate back the world safely, and how do we do that from a health and wellness perspective. So senior living specifically, I think that I've got a lot of groups that are saying we've got to redesign this whole thing. We can't have these wide open spaces anymore. How do we do that? Are you gonna take the building and redesign it all together? And the answer is no. There is a way to strategically bring our seniors together in these senior living communities without having to completely redesign them. But we do know that health and wellness is going to be a focus. I think you're going to see a focus on fitness. I think that's going to be a huge component in all verticals, especially senior living. I think you're going to see a focus on cleaner eating. So the F&B world is going to get, I think we'll have a shakeup. You're going to see obviously a focus on entry and what sort of visitation we have in senior living. But I think you will also see a focus on health and wellness in multifamily and hospitality as well, because the world is now focused on that. We want to be safe, we want to get back to normal, so how do we do that safely from a health and wellness perspective? Todd touched on middle market. That's definitely something that we're hearing a lot of chatter about and a lot of conversation about with jobs that are coming through the door for 21. That middle market, we say all the time at Banko that you can have great design at any budget, and we really do believe that. So again, it's having the conversation about what your goal is for that middle market project and how do we design specifically to that middle market. We have groups that bring us in even in due diligence. Hey, let's look at this property. We're thinking that this might be a great project for us. Can you come in and help us break down budget and what it would take to convert this, to renovate this, to reshape this? So we're happy to do that because we would much rather be able to set those budgets and expectations on the front end so that you can have a successful project. And so that middle market, there's definitely a need for that. Banko's done a lot and has designed quite a bit in that luxury space, and she's really pretty, but it isn't for everybody. So we know that we can help in that middle market too, again, with the strategy and the process that we have in place. and we're excited to see what 21 brings for that middle market. Work from anywhere spaces, obviously that's going to be part of sort of the shift with not only what we're doing as a design industry, but also in our communities, senior living. We're going to have adult children that are going to need the opportunity to be able to work from anywhere. Multifamily, we are constantly, even before the virus, it was the we work. What can we do to provide a space where residents in a multifamily community can have a place where they can use that work from home space. So I think that's going to continue to rise in 21. Outdoor spaces are huge, all three verticals. Even more important after 2020, but what do those outdoor spaces look like? And how do we get architecture, design, and landscape to all work together so you have a holistic design? So I think that you're going to see a big rise in focus on outdoor spaces. That's a great place for everybody to gather and to meet and to feel safe if they're not comfortable being in those indoor amenities. Design with purpose has always been a focus for us as a design firm, but I think there's going to be a dramatic focus on it in 21, and a question and a desire we'll get from our clients, so that they know that their focus and again their expectation is being met within 3 of those verticals. Resimercial design. So Banco Design uses this word quite a bit. Resimercial design. Everyone wants to feel safe. Everyone wants to feel comfortable. So I think we're going to see that rise in multifamily and hospitality. I think you're going to see a shift to that. We've always designed in the senior living space, resimercially, residential in softness and scale, but acting like a commercial project. So I think, again, we'll see that as a trend in 21. We will continue to push that effort for sure. And then renovation, huge, and adaptive reuse. It's going to be a really big thing in 21, which is fine. There's a lot of capital that did not get spent in 20, and we are happy to spend it in 21. But you're going to see that renovation, I think, it rise quite a bit versus new build and adaptive reuse. We have converted several hotels to senior living. We've converted hotels to multifamily pretty successfully. But again, you have to have someone who can help you map out that program. So that is where we see design headed in 21. We are, again, located here in Atlanta, right in Marietta. We also took on a design studio. I bought an additional studio in Minnesota, so they joined our team this year in 20. And we have satellite studios in Austin, Texas, and 2 in Florida. 2020 was definitely a shake-up year. There was still a lot of good in 20. Banko was able to buy a building that we, I don't know, otherwise would have taken on. So that's really exciting. We're going to be moving there in about 9 months. So I think it's just refocusing, hitting reset, working together, having really honest conversations about what we all need 21 to look like. And again, humanizing this design process. Let's work together. Let's play nice in the sandbox. Let's do what's best for the good of the industry. And I'm really excited to see what 21 brings.
Standpoint, but I think you have some additional stuff to tell us about. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Do I need to know anything about this?
No, just press the
This
button.
one? Great. Got it. One arrow. I can do that. Yeah, affordable housing. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Ian Hunter. I'm an architect and an interior designer with TVS Design, located here in Atlanta. We have done such hits as the inside of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the Home Depot backyard, and amazingly, we also do affordable housing. It's a different product type. Who knew? We do everything under the sun: healthcare, multifamily, mixed use, corporate office, workplace, convention center, etc. So if you have the money, we will do it for you, and we're experts. And I started building this idea about affordable housing with our team because has anybody heard more rumblings about making things more affordable? We have so many clients that never touched affordable projects, were not interested, wouldn't ever hear those words come out of their mouths until the last couple of years, and now everybody's like, boy, let's just do multifamily, but make it affordable. Let's do that. We'll have so much business. Great. So we're going to talk about that. This is about TVS. I already told you about us. We're going to hit 3 major things. And once we made this presentation, what we realized is that these are not just things to make great affordable housing. We believe they are prerequisites for affordable housing, but this is just good design. So you should be doing this in all of your projects, and I'm gonna tell you how. So we're gonna talk about community, critical for making a successful affordable housing experience, lowering operating costs because we have made stuff so cheap building it, we need to find smarter ways to cut the bottom line, and design, because that's what I do. So let's talk about community. This is a mixed income affordable housing project that we are working on in Florida at an undisclosed location, let's call it near Mickey Mouse Land. What we're going to talk about here are 3 sub-points about how do you establish community in your multifamily projects. All right, the first thing that is absolutely critical, and we're going to look at it from a macrocosmic standpoint here, is mixed income developments. So one of the biggest failures that I'm sure we have all seen from low income housing is that it's just low income housing and it's plopped somewhere. Right? It's not connected to anything, there's no diversity, there's no integration. That's problematic, it's very hard to make it successful. So you need it to be mixed income, but how do you do that? So from a master planning perspective, in this development, what we started to think about was 2 strategies. One is density, and the second is building height and building type. So this diagram on the left, which is obviously this master plan on the right, what we've done here is we've looked at the traffic entrances. There's a transit station right here, and there's a main entrance up there. We wanted to put our high density, smallest units, including micro units, near those areas because we imagine intentionally that this is where people who may not own a car are going to be located, so we want to make it accessible and easy and provide that service. While we then start to reduce density as we move towards this lake, and we produce lower density townhomes, different multifamily styles, high-end condo units on this upper northeast corner, and that diversity of both density, housing type inside, specifically this building features 1/3 micro units under 450 square foot units, so very small, very affordable, and located next to transit station. 2 strategies, make community. The second in this mixed income community is how do you tie it together? It's not good enough to just put micro units and then across the street high-end condo and then across the street townhouse and think it's all going to work together. It's not. And 2 strategies that we have to be able to integrate these communities is to first create a reason why people are going to move around, and in the master planning process, we are promoting shared amenities in all of these developments. So some buildings that may be more high-end may have a private pool, they may have a rooftop deck that is only accessible to that building, but we're encouraging the development of shared amenities throughout the building, so throughout all of the buildings. So when you move into this property, you then have amenities highlighted in this pink color throughout the entire site, connected with outdoor space. Gives you an easy, pedestrian-friendly way to move through the site, and those amenities are shared. It doesn't matter if you're in a 400 square foot affordable unit, or if you're a penthouse unit on the condo building overlooking the lake. Those pink areas that are, we considered follies, those begin to give people a reason to move through the site and establish community. The third one is connecting residents with community services. Mixed use is the newest hot thing, as of like 10 years ago, so new and so hot. There's a reason for it. We want to be able to provide F&B and retail and spread it through the site in both vehicularly accessed and pedestrian accessed mode. So you'll see here, we didn't actually align retail along the pedestrian path, although it touches on it. We did keep it on a parallel parked vehicular route so that people from outside of the site can come in, and it's very inviting and friendly for them to engage in the retail spaces. Pretty picture. Okay, this is a very important one. We have been implementing this with clients for years now. We've had clients come to us and say, we want to make affordable housing, we want to build cheaper than other affordable housing builders. impossible, right? It's impossible. Have you seen how cheap some of this crap is? It's so cheap. So where do we think about reducing, or where do we think about making more money, right? So I'm just gonna touch on this one real quick. We are investigating the use of low maintenance, super durable materials. This started with multifamily projects that we do in Florida, where there is a lot of concrete block that we then put furring channels over, that we then put gyp on top, that we then paint over. That's 3 trades right there, pretty expensive. Skip all of it. CMU block looks great if you do it right. And it really can be something, if you have a quality design mind behind your project, you can make these durable background materials become something really special. Eye candy. All right, here's the pie chart. So fun. So we started looking at where all of our operators' expenses go. Where does the money go after you bring it in through rent? Taxes, can't help you there, not my business. And then let's look at the 2 biggest next pieces of the pie chart. Salaries and operations and maintenance. Interesting. That is a gigantic amount of revenue that is gone from your business. So what we have started to do is integrate technology and reduce the number of personnel that need to be on site, specifically by having shared maintenance programs across communities, like you just saw in the master plan that we had seen before, but by also reducing the number of leasing agents and personnel that need to be on site, because almost everything can be automated at this moment, and there is a disconnect between the number of personnel on site and the technological services that are being provided to provide maintenance, bring in packages, do lease walks and tours, or answer questions. A lot of this can be done very simply with 1 and a maximum of 2 people on a site. That's immediately starting to cut down your salaries and personnel budget. But secondly, tying into the low-cost materials, repair and maintenance is a huge cost, especially at unit turnover. And if you use highly durable materials that don't require the same level of maintenance as, say, gyp is a very easy one, or carpet, which heaven forbid anybody ever use that again. We've learned our lesson. But those are the low-hanging fruit areas. And we had proposed to one of our clients, like, we're actually going to make a personnel-less, salary-free property. No one will work there, not even from the beginning of lease-up. It will be completely automated. 27%, that's all yours. And they were like, whoa, 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 we don't even need that much money back. We'll throw 1 person in there. And I was like, well, fine, we can do that. But I really do believe we can just cut this out of the puzzle altogether. And especially with younger and younger demographics coming in, renting in the multifamily realm, they don't even want to talk to people. I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to talk to a leasing agent, uninterested. I don't want to take an hour-long tour of your property. I just want to show up with my phone. It tells me where to go. It lets me in everywhere, and then I can make a decision at the end of the day after I've looked at 10 properties that all kind of look the same and rent your spot. And then, hold on. Okay, yeah, we're gonna fly through these. Because you've heard this, right? Sustainable buildings, how are we going to, this is the 3rd for operating and maintenance costs. We want to be less systems intensive and more envelope intensive. There has been a lot of push to use technology to save energy, but technology is expensive. And when you think of LEED buildings or green buildings, you just hear money, especially if you're going to sell your property. And so that's not something that we tend to push, especially in the multifamily realm, because of the budgets that we have from a design perspective. But you can be smart and shift the money you spend on your mechanical and electrical systems to the building envelope and actually make your architecture better. And so this is an example of what happens when we start to reduce the number of actual systems, the number of mechanical units, the number of stations that go into your building. That is big, those are big money items in your project. We have an engineering partner that is very focused in sustainability, and they've helped us successfully and very frequently from the beginning with no additional cost on a project be able to implement solar strategies, or advanced envelope strategies that actually play on standard building practices, but we use research and analysis in a smart way to reduce the number of physical systems that go into your building so you can spend it on the sexy stuff. Design, oh, that is a good looking building. Who did that? We did. And so outdoor space, we're gonna talk about design, what is going to make a community successful, especially an affordable housing community. Outdoor space is huge. I know Melissa had spoken about that. I think everybody is thinking about people using outdoor space more and more, but it's critical to be able to build community. It's also inexpensive. Building outdoor space is cheaper than building conditioned indoor space, and people want it. People want things that cost less. Let's give it to them. Do not underutilize outdoor space. Efficiency. This is something, I feel sometimes like this is my only job, is to just make the most efficient building possible because no one wants to waste space. There's a smarter way to go about it that we don't see a lot in the industry right now, and we call it optioneering. We're super smart, all of us designers, we're all smart. We can do a yield study for you, we can make efficient plans, but let's say it takes me or a team member 2 hours, 3 hours to lay out a typical floor plan for a building based on a site plan that you have given us. I can't make you 100 options, I can make you 2 or 3. That's what computers are for. So we have a program that we use on all of our multifamily and hospitality projects that use an algorithm based on the perimeter of the site. We then plug in our actual unit plans based on the square footage and the unit mix, and then we find basically an unlimited number of options. This is just an example, and this is just like dumb garbage the computer spits out. You would never want to build any of this thing that's flashing up on your screen, but it looks fun. And what we do then is we have a plate of 100 options. We can narrow down the ones that are anywhere between 85 and 90% efficient as realistic options for development, and then we can, in a smart way, with our design minds, look at the possible solution, then do a real yield study on it, do a real floor plan on it that is smart, and we can do it so much faster and potentially uncover solutions that we just never would have had time to do before computers could spit out hundreds and hundreds of different options for us to review in minutes. Facade design, huge with affordable housing. One of the biggest failures with affordable housing, and candidly all housing these days, is ugly buildings. So one of the dead giveaways for affordable housing is the building's ugly. It's just hardy plank, white windows, and a pitched roof. That's all it is. And people hate that. It does not make the community want to play nice with you. It makes your meetings really challenging. It doesn't give people a sense of pride in the place that they want to live. So we want to make fun facades, but we don't want to spend money doing it. How do we do it? One of the biggest things is simplification, but staying true to your core concept design. On the left, high-end condo in Puerto Rico we did, not cheap. But super cool, we had done this facade that zigzags so that every unit, which gets stacked diagonally, gets both views of the pool, views of the ocean, and from anywhere you stand on these balconies, you cannot see, no one can see you from another unit in the building. It's impossible. So we drew all these sight lines. Super complex, lots of slab turns, lots of exterior facade turns. This is kind of a blurry sketch that I did. And this is for the building that you had seen in the glamour shot 2 slides ago. We wanted to accomplish the same thing for this project in Denver, where you can see the city, see the mountains, get 2 views, have full privacy on your patio. That's here if you can't see it, sorry, it's super blurry. And they're all stacked in a straight line, because we need to be efficient. And it works. And the reason it's cost effective is twofold. First, The slab is straight. There are no turns in the slab of this building. It is completely flat, straight, rectangular slab. Saves a ton of money in formwork. And the second is, instead of ins and outs and tongue depressor balconies that you see on tons of multifamily buildings, the facade has 2 turns, right? One here, one here. That's all there is. And it's repetitive, it's redundant. That's the building. Ah, yeah, this is a 20% affordable unit housing development in Denver. Looks pretty good. I mean, who knows? We might have to get rid of a little bit more glass, but we're close. And the reason that we're close is because we kept materials simple, we kept the slab simple, and we kept it extremely modular. So it is a repetitive facade system. And those, community, lowering your operating costs, and quality design, are the keys for you to be able to create affordable housing. You must do these things. And if you just want to create great market rate housing, I also recommend you highly do that. Again, Ian Hunter, Associate Principal at TVS. Please let me know if you have any questions after today's meeting.